Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mara and today I have another review for you guys. This one is probably also going to be a longer one, so grab a snack, grab a drink and let's talk about the Japanese crime drama Yakuza to Kazoku, which has been picked up by Netflix and put on the streaming platform as well. It is definitely not a Netflix original, but it is on the streaming platform, so if you are interested in Japanese crime dramas, in Yakuza stories, then please, first of all, keep watching, and second of all, give it a try on Netflix. As always, guys, let's get straight into it. I am talking about not only this movie, which is, like I said, on Netflix since 2021. It was released in Japan in January 2021 and then later picked up by Netflix, so it is on the streaming platform still. I have watched it a couple of times and that's what I'm going to talk about today. But not only about the movie, but also a little bit more about the history of the Japanese crime syndicates, the Yakuza, because I feel a lot of people who are not really into this topic and who don't really research about it or speak to Japanese people about it don't really know about the background of the Yakuza, the Japanese crime syndicate. So that's what I would like to give you some background on in this review as well. I thought instead of just talking about the movie, it would be a little bit more of interest for you guys to also learn about what I'm talking about and what this movie is about, so that you can understand my opinion on this movie as well. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. So, Yakuza to Kazoku is, like I said, a Japanese crime drama that is on Netflix since 2021, and it has around 135 minutes, so it's a little bit of a longer movie, but it's totally worth it. So straight ahead, give it a try if you haven't. It is a crime drama. It has a rating of 12, so it's not as brutal, it's not as bloody and gory as other movies, I would say. And immediately in the beginning of this movie we get introduced to the main character, which is Yamamoto Lil Kenji. And shortly after the beginning of this movie we learn that his father actually dies from a stimulant drug, and we can definitely see that Kenji is struggling a lot. He's not really able to care about his father's death, so his life is basically falling apart, and in this difficult time he meets someone, which is the Shibasaki Gumi boss, Shibasaki Hiroshi, and he kind of sympathizes with Lil Ken and takes him under his wing, so to speak, and they quickly develop a father-son-like relationship. So they get really close and they spend a lot of time together. Due to unfortunate events though, Kenji has to go to jail. He serves time in prison and then he gets released 14 years later, only to realize that everything changed. So this is basically the short version of what happens. A little summary for you guys. Of course, there's a little bit more going on, which is why you should watch this movie. But for everyone who doesn't know much about the Yakuza, the Japanese crime syndicate, the Japanese mafia, however you want to call it, I would like to give a brief introduction. The Yakuza has been around since the rise of the samurai, basically, so the 17th century, and they are members of organized crime syndicates or families. They are originated in Japan, of course, so they have been around for a long, long time. And the name basically comes from the worst deck of the traditional card game, the Japanese card game Oicho Kabu. And in this game, the goal is to draw 3 cards. and you have to add up the 3 numbers basically from these cards to a score of 9, and if the sum exceeds 10, then its second digit is used as a score instead, so the second number of 10 is 0. And if the 3 cards 8, 9 and 3, pronounced Yakuza, are summed up basically, they are the number 20, and therefore the score is also 0. So it's basically the worst deck that you can draw in this card game, and that's where the name Yakuza is originated. Yakuza is also known as Gakudo, which can be roughly translated to the extreme path, and especially the original members of the Yakuza families follow not only a very strict code of conduct, but since their formation they also adapted the hierarchical, I hope I pronounced that correct, structure of oyabun kobun, where kobun literally means foster child, and they owe their allegiance to the oyabun, which is literally translated to foster parent. The hierarchy of the Yakuza, I think, is something very interesting to know. So if you are interested in that, I will put a picture here of the hierarchy and link it in the info box below as well, so that you can actually look it up, because like I said, I find it very interesting to learn about these kinds of things, to understand a little bit more about what is going on in those families. So this oyabun kobun relationship actually is formalized by a ceremonial sharing of sake from a single cup. You've probably seen that in movies and like documentaries and stuff like that, though this is not exclusive to the Yakuza families, but also in a traditional Japanese Shinto wedding, for example. So you've probably also saw that there. And back to the Yakuza, there are currently like 3 big groups still in Japan, operating still in Japan, which is first of all the Yamaguchi-gumi, which is the biggest one with around 8,200 members, I think. And we have the Sumiyoshi Kai with 4,200 members, and the third one is the Ingawa Kai with about 3,300 members. And each family and even like smaller groups control a different part, a different region in the country or in a city. So you can definitely look up where the Yamaguchi-gumi or the Sumiyoshi Kai, for example, operate and which areas they control, if that is something that is interesting to you. So the Yakuza's power basically flourished after World War II because Japan was experiencing a security vacuum, you could call it, and the state and the police were not really able to control the booming markets and the population, as well as the criminal situations, I guess you could say, and which actually made the Yakuza rise to their role of a second police force. So alongside with the official police, they operated as some type of security, you could say. So back then they definitely operated with the support of the government and the official police force, and they controlled smaller thugs and also like other smaller criminals. And right after the financial meltdown in 2008, the number of active Yakuza members throughout all families rapidly declined to now under 50,000 members in total. So during its peak, they were about more than 100,000 members. So that is actually like half from back then to basically, yeah, like now. I mean, now, 2008. It's 2022, so I didn't really find any like newer numbers, so that is actually all I can tell you about that right now. Also, you have to understand it is quite difficult to get first-hand information about this. Generally, Japanese people don't like to speak about these families, and it's difficult to talk to people who were in the Yakuza people who were part of one of those families. So like I said, it is something that is very interesting to me because I find the beginning and the history of the Yakuza very interesting and very good, I have to say as well. I'm not getting into a whole debate, but it is definitely something that is interesting to me, and you have to understand that it's very difficult to get any first-hand information about this, so that's just how it is. What I do want you guys to understand and to know though is more of, like I said, the history. So as mentioned before, traditionally rooted Yakuza families operate with a very strict code of conduct, which is first of all, treat your oyabun with respect. Second of all, do not steal from the everyday man. Third of all, don't disrupt the harmony of the family or touch the partner of a fellow member. Fourth is never involve yourself with drugs, even though we have to say, or I have to say, even though there are groups right now, nowadays, that use drug trafficking as a way to make money in spite of these traditional rules. And the fifth is always act respectfully. Japanese families, like Yakuza families, have a long-standing reputation for being respectful to those who don't work against them, as well as giving back to those people in need. I said it before, after World War II, the Yakuza rise to the position that they had back then, not only because they also controlled the criminals together with the government and the police, but also because they supported a lot of people who've lost everything. So for example, in 1995 and 2011 respectively, after the big earthquake, they acted immediately to send out aid, food and helicopters to those in need, as well as opening their doors of their offices to people who needed shelter. So obviously we are still talking about crime syndicates. People have really mixed feelings about the Yakuza, and I think not only in Japan but also outside of Japan. I'm not, like I said, getting into a whole discussion about my opinion too much. And I'm not going to say, hey, the Yakuza is good and they help people, they are like saints. No, they are not. It's still a criminal syndicate, but I think you have to still know about their past and that they not only do bad things, that they also did good things, you know, to help the Japanese people in difficult times. And like I said, I'm not getting any further into any discussion about this. Geez, this is, I think, a very difficult topic. I want to talk about it, but I don't want to get too much like into my opinion about it because I don't want to have a big discussion with you guys. Obviously, I am not Japanese, I'm a foreigner, so I'm an outsider. It's just my outside view, but like I said before, I try to do my research as good as I can and I try to learn things about these families. I would love to actually talk to someone about this, someone who was involved, someone who could give me more information to better understand what the history is of these families and how they came to be and how they operated and how things changed and stuff like that. Back to the movie, because that's what this review is mostly about. This movie is basically this. Of course it is a movie, it is a fictional story, but it also, I feel, has a lot of truth to it. So over everything, this whole movie is very sad and tragic to me. Most and foremost because we can witness the stories of so many different people who were involved with the Yakuza, so members or ex-members, and also their friends and families who are tied to them. It is not only heartbreaking to witness the downfall of the Japanese Yakuza and their members, of course, but to also witness the struggle that they have to endure after deciding to leave the Yakuza. So, for your information, just so you can understand what I mean by that, for the first years after someone leaves the Yakuza, they actually don't start at zero like everybody else would, but they rather face massive legal barriers. So it's like starting from minus and working yourself up to zero, where everybody else starts if they do something wrong. So ex-members are not only not able to open a bank account or rent homes, get insurance, or like obtain a mobile device, a mobile phone, basically things that everybody else needs. Of course, they also have difficulties getting a job just to earn some money and survive life, you know, what you have to do to buy food and get a home or stuff like that. So most of the ex-members sadly can't even make it through these first 5 years because of those rules in Japan, and they mostly just fall back into like criminal activities. So there's basically like a very low chance, I don't want to say zero, but there is a very low chance of people getting out and then just living a normal life out of like criminal activities. So, and back to the movie, that is actually what we can see with people in this movie, stories about them, their families, people who are involved with them. So I have watched this movie several times because I just think it is a very good movie that shows the situation how it is. I don't know if there are people who were involved with the Yakuza that also were involved with making this movie, because somehow I very much feel this could be the case because it feels very true to the reality. And anyways, every time that I watch this movie, I'm very moved by it. It makes me very sad. It brings me to tears as well. And overall, it just makes me sad, like I said. I'm not getting into, like I said, a debate whether these crime syndicates are good or bad or whatever. All I am going to say about this is that the traditional families that go back over 300 years, they definitely did try to do good for the communities and for the people who lived within those communities, and not everything is always just good or just bad. So I would kind of advise you guys, if you are just somewhat interested in the topic, to do your own research, to form your own opinion and about this movie, because that's what we are mainly talking about. It's still a review. This is a movie about loyalty, unity, and most and foremost about the struggle of finding a life after being involved with these families, with the Yakuza, being part of it. I really love the performance of Ayano Go. He is a great actor. If you don't know much about him, then please look him up. He's so good. He played the role of Kenji so well. His facial expression and the pain in his eyes and in his face were just so damn good. Also, especially loved the performance and the relationship with his co-star who played Kenji's girlfriend Yuka, who was played by Ono Machiko, as well as obviously Tachi Hiroshi, who played the Shibasaki gumi boss, Shibasaki Hiroshi. I definitely love this movie, that's why I'm going to recommend it to you guys. Please watch it. It's good, it's good, it's good, I promise. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, if you've already watched it or if you will watch it after this review. And I guess that is it for today's review. I hope you have a wonderful week as always, a wonderful weekend whenever you are watching this, and I will see you in my next video. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram at kotatsu.talk, and I will see you in my next video. Stay real, keep it real as always, and bye bye!